Good morning. Namaskar. I'm Dr. Pushpa Kumari, Assistant Professor, Shyama Prasad Mukherjee College, University of Delhi. Today I'm going to present briefly about my research work on the topic a study of attitudes of teachers and parents towards inclusive education with reference to Kendriya Vidyalayas of Delhi under the guidance of Dr. Sanjay Sharma, Assistant Professor, DAE, School of Educational Studies, Dr. Hari Singh Gaur Vishwavidyalay, Sagar, Madhya Pradesh. The whole of my thesis has been organized into 7 chapters, starting from the context, going through literature review, research methodology, data collection and representation, then data analysis and interpretation, and in the end, it is summarized. Now, before going into the research objectives, I would like to introduce my topic that is inclusive education. See, education is the core of equality and empowerment. So, though the right to education and equality of educational opportunities is guaranteed by the Constitution of India, it is disturbing to find that more than half of the population of differently able children and youth with varying competencies are denied their right and do not receive an adequate schooling in an appropriate environment. We firmly believe that all children can learn and most of them can be included in regular or mainstream education. For this, we need to create a regular class environment that nurtures acceptance of diversity and promotes cooperation based on reciprocity and mutual respect. So, we need to focus on inclusive education as it addresses all aspects of child development, including emotional, intellectual, physical, creative, and social domains. So, why the need of this study? So, the present study was conceived to inquire into the attitudes of teachers and parents pertaining to the various facets of inclusive education in the area of academic needs, behavioral issues, social relations, professional skills, infrastructure, access to resources. See, as students with special needs are included in regular educational settings, educators are facing diverse students with or without special needs. So, providing quality education for all such students in inclusive settings has been identified as perhaps the most challenging task in imparting education. So, therefore, there is a need to understand the strengths and weaknesses of the children, the various dynamics of inclusive class, and to analyze as to what extent the stakeholders are ready to implement inclusion. So, also to explore new techniques that must be adopted to make the system effective in the best interest of each child. So, all participants in the school education system, including teachers, principals, administrators, social workers, the counselors, and students, they need to be sensitized to the requirement of all students, the notion of inclusion and equity, and the respect and dignity of all persons. Also, parents are less aware of inclusive education. So, mainstreaming and inclusion of students with special needs are becoming a matter of priority in many countries around the world. So, the process can be facilitated by generating awareness and sensitivity among people about various special needs and about various varying competencies of children. So, it can further be enhanced by various legislations and policy developed and put to practice by the government. So now let's moving on to the research objectives. My first objective was to explore the notion of inclusion in the Indian socio-cultural context. Second, to critically analyze the provisions in the existing education policies and acts related to children with special needs in India. To examine teachers' attitude as stakeholders and identify the factors that affect their attitudes about the notion and practice of inclusive education and inclusion of children with special needs in their classrooms. The last objective was to understand parents' attitude as stakeholders and identify the factors that affect their attitudes towards the notion and practice of inclusive education and inclusion of CWSN in the classrooms. To achieve these objectives, the methodology used was At the first stage of the study, it involves studying and appraisal of the available work pertaining to the concept of inclusive education in India. At the second stage, systematic literature reviews were done to study history of inclusive education in India and government policies and acts related to CWSN. At the third stage, an exploratory study was taken to determine the attitudes of teachers and parents through rating scale, questionnaire, and interviews schedule. So this is the methodology used. It was a mixed method research. It used both qualitative and quantitative approach, and rating scale, questionnaire, case studies, interviews, observations were done, case studies were done, and then analysis was done, and triangulation method was used. Now, moving on to the framework for analysis, how the analysis was done. It was divided into six different sections. First section was exploring the notion of inclusion in the Indian socio-cultural context, then understanding of education policies and acts related to people with disabilities in India, then a comparative analysis of data based on questionnaire of general teachers and special educators were done, then a comparative analysis of data on attitude scale used for general teachers, special educators, and parents were done, and then the analysis of data obtained through interview schedule from general teachers and special educators were done, and then the analysis of case studies were done. For understanding the educational policies and acts related to CWSN in India, various national level policies were analyzed. First was IEDC, which started in 1974, then NPE 1986, then PIED, which was launched in 1987, then Rehabilitation Council of India Act 1992, DPEP, which was launched in 1994, was analyzed, and then PWD Act 1995, National Trust Act 1999, Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan 2001, Right to Education 2010, RPWD Act 2016. Now, the major findings of the study. Stated the reviews of policies and acts related to disability, the attitude of teachers and parents, role of gender of teachers and parents, role of teachers trained in inclusive education, pre-service training versus in-service training, teaching experience and attitude, differences between parent with special need children and parents without special need children, and role of educational background of parents were also studied. Now, educational implications of the study. This study has educational implications for all, for policymakers and academicians, administrators and education leaders, for teachers, for parents or community, for researchers. Now, the recommendation and suggestions. My research study, it recommends and suggests that early interventions be provided to ensure that children who have difficulties learning receive the help they need as soon as possible. Teacher training program should include the aspect of special needs education in making school inclusive. The quality assurance and standard officer should be trained in special needs education for effective supervision of implementation process of inclusive education for children with special needs. Teachers must ensure at providing equal opportunities to each and every child. Special assistance be given to those in need. Appreciation and acceptance from teachers ensures development of a child. The government should ensure the implementation of the formulated policies for the rights, education, and inclusiveness of people with special needs. The government should increase funding for educational assessment and research centers to allow them organize frequent awareness seminars for teachers, education officers, parents, and the general public. Care for child should not become a barrier in the overall development of child. At the school level, better infrastructural facilities must be ensured. Encourage effective and accountable parent school collaborations to enhance students' academic and social performance. Thank you.